George, Louis, and Sam.
Louis.
Oh my God! So you pull that face in the camera.
What? Yeah.
Blank canvas. Evaluation question 1. George, Louis, and Sam. Here we go then. So we're going to start off at the start of the film, and we'll pause and go as we go through and add comment points to it.
I get a feeling it's gonna be a riot.
So I think already there, if we're looking particularly at how we're introduced to the characters, particularly parts, when we're introduced to the characters very starkly, very suddenly, particularly the first character. The second character, the Doctor, we're given a bit more time to be introduced to as he comes through the door.
Also, we cut straight to the first character, the patient.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
There are very clear and stark differences actually between the characters. We immediately see the patient lying on the bed, obviously had an operation done, very weak, very morbid, whilst we see the Doctor who's
slowly and
strong and full of life. I think it's a clear example we see
also
there.
The fact that the patient's lower than him in terms of
height.
Yeah.
In the room, he's actually lower on the bed.
Yeah.
So the Doctor takes more precedence in the room.
Yeah. We'll move on in just a second. Okay, continuing on. I think here's a good place to stop and look at the setting for the actual film. The setting of the film. Well, I'll let you two.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're given a CCTV view of the whole room, so you can see everything that's going on in the room. It gives you the setting gives you a sense of mystery because you don't know where it is. But it's we decided to use an actual medical room so that it would give a bit more authenticity to the piece. But obviously, because no one knows where it is, and all you know is the inside of the room, you don't know what it looks like from the outside.
Also, the age of the building quite helps. You can see it's quite an older building, and also actually being a medical room makes it quite clear, very clean, very cleansed. We were trying to compare, looking at other films that use this. We used Buried, that is based, an entire film based in a coffin. The very enclosed space makes a sense of entrapment, insecurity, and I think that's quite important in our film. Moving on. Here's quite a good place to stop and talk about costume.
Yeah. Well, the Doctor's face is covered, so it creates a quite unknown and mysterious feel to it, and then the patient's face is also covered with the band-aids, which also adds to that sort of mystery and very unknown about what's happened.
I think also using the black and white, both the patient and the Doctor are actually wearing white, creates a sense. Increases the sense that it's a medical, it's a very thriller, very clean, there's been an operation.
And then there's the clash of the blood with the white on the bandages.
And I think that's very a stark contrast, but also something you'd expect to see.
Yeah.
It creates very stark contrast, but it's not out of the ordinary.
And the black and white and also the blue tint over the so they affect add the effect of the genre to the film to make it feel more calm.
Almost has a similarity between the characters because they're both in white, they're both blued out. Both sort of
they're being hidden, it gives their identity. It doesn't give much away about their identity. You can make out that they're male, but you couldn't really work out an age or things like that. I'm going to let Sam and Louis quickly just explain where we got our ideas for the costumes.
We looked at the movies like Human Centipede 2 and Human Centipede 1 as well for the costume in terms of bandages and the type of unknown characters for the victims. But then we also looked at Hannibal for the masked doctor and the sense of unknown you get from him, and how the effect of not knowing the person in control gives a sense of fear to that to the victim and also the viewer.
Just quickly moving on. I think if we stop here, where we see large quantities of prop use, probably the most props we see throughout the entire thing. Just tracking back a little bit there, we still see this. The props are what are found in a doctor's surgery. They're very contemporary compared to the room, which looks quite old, and it's kind of that contrast we're trying to go with.
Yeah.
We also should talk about here about the camera work and editing. I think that's quite, because the shot really does show that. We used a handful of different shots. For example, the CCTV point down view shot and zoomed in shots, but also the tracking and the tracking shots we've seen as well, particularly across the body, the body. I think what we were trying to go with, and I think you'll agree with me, was we wanted to feel compassion towards the patient, but we also wanted to see what it was like from the doctor's point of view. We weren't trying to restrict the audience from just wanting to be on the side of the patient. We wanted to open it up and actually cause a bit of a controversy, I suppose, would be what.
Without giving, if we'd given the audience one perspective, they wouldn't have grasped the entire story, and they wouldn't have got the same feeling of not knowing who to side with. I suppose. I mean, if you give the doctor's perspective, but you manage to get across the patient's fear and how vulnerable the patient is, it gives you so many choices. You're not sure who to side with, so it also makes it a more a brain-teasing shot, really, I think.
Yeah, and that first shot, it really does sort of bring out the fear in the patient, that first sudden introduction of the character.
Okay, and we'll just quickly move on. And I think if we stop here, we can actually look at the overall story of our film. And it's a film about a man who's obsessed with making humanity better, not by educating them or doing it in ways that we would see through, aid schemes, things like that. We've actually seen it through reharvesting the human body.
Yeah, remaking it totally.
We think we show that actually quite well in the first scene. We don't give much away, but it entices the audience to be able to cling on to something like that.
It's almost like a Frankenstein type shot. It's the doctor's recreating something that from a shell of something past. It's recreating something new, but an improvement, a perfect human or something along the lines of.
Also, I think we should be a good time to talk about the actual genre of the film.
Thriller, sort of horror genre. Mainly shown by the light of the colours and the actual sort of mise-en-scènes of the...
which unusually are light colours. I mean, I think the fact that we've gone for whites and blues is a contrast to most horrors, which would be dark and menacing.
Very different, although we keep the blood in there. So we're keeping with the ordinary for the film, but we're adding to it of the genre. We're adding and changing it. I think it's really, really good. I also think particularly the music's very important.
Yes.
The music really makes the piece, really makes it somber, really adds friction, I'd almost say, to the film. You see a very starkness between it, but it's well timed and it's it goes very well along with the actions taking shot. We see the crescendos and the diminuendos, and I think that's very important when trying to portray this sort of genre.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point because it's a slow. It's a slow scene. It's a slow intro to the movie. It's not like if we'd had pumped up violins going and the thrilling music. It wouldn't have been as effective as the slow
droning sort of.
Droning, yes.
I think here will be the best place to stop and actually look at how the use of special effects in the film. We see this tracking shot along, but we also special effects played an important part in the shooting of the film. Actually, we've been adding this blue effect to it throughout the film, trying to lighten it, change the tone, change the overall mood of the film.
Yeah, and also almost reduce the contrast between things, make everything blurred over. And
also, we've used theatre blood to really make the blood really clear, very very powerful blood, not very light blood that you'd expect from some of these films. Really looks like it's seeping from the human body. Anything to add to that? I don't know.
No, I've already talked about the mood and how it feels feel cold.
Yeah. So, just finally now moving on to the last shrill shot of the film.
this is where the titles come
I think that really works well, the way the blank canvas comes out red through the blood.
It joins, matches the colour, and it's quite interesting the way we've done this. I quite like it the way we've put the title sequence at the end. Almost when in a cinema type experience you get the trailers, it goes dark and very suddenly you see this, and I think it's very different to what you'd see in most movie theatres.
It's a bit like The Fly. You get a bit of an intro before you actually see the title sequence, the title of the film come out.
And I think it creates that bit more of suspense that we're trying to go for.
Because they're still trying to figure out what it is.
The font has, I think we've chosen the title Blank Canvas because we think it fits in quite well. It goes with the story. He's trying to start from new. He's trying to recreate a new beginning kind of situation. Also, it goes quite well with the genre that we've tried to create along with the atmosphere.
You can drag a lot of meaning from the title.
There's also, it could be manipulated. People think about it very differently, so you're all going to get a different impression when you go into the film about what it could be about.
It's very almost opinionated, depending on the person. They'll get a different view from what the film tells you.
Finally, the font. We've gone with a Mons typewriter font. We've used this because it's very accustomed to thriller films. It's something you would expect to see. We're keeping with norm there with thriller films, I think.
Especially in a medical type genre like this one, sort of medical thriller.
Typewriter, how it would have been typed up.
Also the shadow we have behind the text as well. That's a lot of
I thank you very much for this. I think that's us done.
Director's got the tree.
Yep.